Naila, why is English language important to learn?
This is because English language is an international language and is widely followed and understood by people across the world.
I want to learn this language.
To learn every language, there are some skills to develop. Follow this class to learn these skills.
Our viewers, we are glad to meet you once again. Get ready to join us with your pen and your exercise book. Remember, you can get further information on this program by following the link displayed on your screen. You can also go there to learn previous lessons that you have missed. Our discussion has been on relationship between clauses. Today, we are looking at linking clauses without the use of coordinator or a subordinator. Today, we are looking at linking clauses without the use of coordinator or a subordinator. So far, we have realized that in connecting our message within our clauses, we mostly depend on coordinators and subordinators, and we use them in linking these clauses. In this lesson, we are going to see how we can link one clause to the other without actually using subordinator or a coordinator, and yet be able to establish the relationship that we need between them. Now let's look at the objectives for our lesson. Our first objective is that we should be able to identify a connection between clauses without coordinator or a subordinator. Even though there won't be a coordinator or a subordinator between our clauses or linking our clauses, but we still should be able to find a link between them. And then two, we should also be able to link clauses in sentence construction without using coordinator or a subordinator. After you have been able to identify in a text or in a speech a link between clauses without subordinator or a coordinator, on your own you should also be able to do this anytime you are constructing a sentence, either you are writing or you are speaking. Now let's go into the lesson, linking clauses without linking words. Clauses without linking words. Clauses without what? Linking words. Writing or speaking on a topic begins with a wide range of preparation. You would agree with me that anytime you have to write or speak on something, you have to prepare. You think about a lot of things if you want to have a very perfect piece of essay. We've discussed essay already, but we would notice that when you are writing, you have to break down your main topic into paragraphs. So you have to plan on the various areas you need to talk about and other things that you have to prepare on. The writer or speaker expresses his ideas under several circumstances. So after you've considered the wide range of things that you need to do, you express your ideas under these circumstances that you find yourself. Now, the circumstance within which a writer or a speaker expresses his ideas determines how the various clauses are connected together, depending on what you are writing. The situation, the time, the audience, and the impact you want the message to get onto your audience will determine how you connect your clauses in your statement. It has already been observed that clauses can be connected under the concept of equivalence, that is coordination, or dependence, that's subordination. So when we are linking our message in our sentence through the clauses, we mostly depend on coordinators or coordination, where you have clauses of equal importance. So a situation where the speaker places equal importance on the clauses in a sentence, or a situation of subordination where the speaker places more importance on one clause, the main clause, and then the subordinate clause is below the main clause. So you have a situation where the subordinate clause depends on the main clause for a perfect message to be carried across. For a perfect message to be carried across. So here, in our previous discussions, that is what we have studied. A situation where either equivalency is established through coordination or dependency is established through subordination. And when we were doing this, we use coordinators for coordination and we use subordinators for subordination. There are instances, however, where the connection between clauses in a particular statement are not explicitly realized through coordinators or subordinators. There are instances, however, where the connection between clauses in a particular statement are not explicitly realized through coordinators or subordinators. What we are saying is that a writer, a speaker, can still connect the various clauses in a sentence without actually having to use subordinator or a coordinator, as we have studied so far. Now consider the sentences below. She has lost it all over the years, only that she didn't know it. We have two clauses here. She has lost it. She has lost it all over the years. One clause. Only that she didn't know it. Another clause. The two have been linked, connected, to give us a meaningful message. She has lost it all over the years. Only that she didn't know it. Yet we do not have a subordinator or a coordinator connecting these two clauses. Yet we can see the linkage there. We can see the connection between the two clauses. Of course, the first clause has its subject she, and then the second clause has she also. Then the next sentence, sentence 2, you can't depend on him. For example, he failed to be on time the last time. So you have one clause, you can't depend on him. Then you have another clause, for example, he failed to be on time the last time, or he failed to be on time the last time. Here, we've been able to establish a kind of connection between these two clauses, giving us a full message without a subordinator or a coordinator. Only adults are eligible to vote. That is to say, only those of 18 years and above. Again, two clauses. Only adults are eligible to vote. Only those of 18 years and above. Identify any subordinator or coordinator in the sentence. She has lost it all over the years, only that she didn't know it. Is there any subordinator or coordinator? I've already given you the answers. You can't depend on him. For example, he failed to be on time the last time. Any subordinator or coordinator? Only adults are eligible to vote. That is to say, only those of 18 years and above. Any subordinator or coordinator? And if you do, which category would you put either the subordinator or coordinator? None of the sentences has either coordinator or a subordinator, as we've mentioned already. So going through these three sentences, you wouldn't see a subordinator or a coordinator, yet there's a connection between the clauses in these sentences. So the second clause in each sentence seeks to clarify the point made in the first clause. Is that so? Yes. We realize that in each sentence, the second clause clarifies, asks, says something to the first clause for our message to come out perfectly well. The speaker or the writer at times depends on the hearer's or reader's ability to connect these things. So as a speaker speaks, or as a writer writes, the writer depends on the audience's ability to have the connection that is being made from whatever is being said. For example, in sentence 1, she has lost it all over the years, only that she didn't know it. Anyone listening or reading this would straight away be able to connect the message there. Someone is expected to have known that whatever she is after is not possible. But just that the person never realized that. So the connection is there. So you can connect she didn't know it, only that she didn't know it, to she has lost it all over the years. Then you cannot depend on him. For example, he failed to be on time the last time. You can see the connection where the second clause tries to give more reasons why you cannot depend on someone. So it's exemplifying. It's giving you a perfect reason why you cannot depend on the person. And the reason is that the person has failed you before. The person has failed to be on time before, so you can't depend on the person this time around. So that connection is there. Yet we do not have a coordinator or a subordinator linking the two clauses. Only adults are eligible to vote. That is to say, only those of 18 years and above. Yes. The second clause trying to repeat the message in the first one, trying to restate, try to bring more emphasis on the first one. Of course, we know that adults are those within the age of 18 years. So you say that only adults are eligible to vote. But making the statement more profound, the writer repeats the statement in another way and saying that only those of 18 years and above. So that if you do not know the category of adult the speaker is referring to, the speaker is saying clearly that if you are not 18 years and above, you cannot vote. You are not eligible to vote. This kind of connection is realized through. So we have the three sentences where connection is established between the clauses in each of these sentences. And we say that we can realize this type of connection when we do not use subordinators or coordinators by the following ways. One, by doing what is known as upgrading. So we use a method of upgrading to establish connection between clauses without using subordinators or coordinators. We use exemplifying, another method where you can establish connection between your clauses in a sentence without actually using coordinators or subordinators. It is not to say that the clauses within the sentences cannot be analyzed under equivalency or dependency. No. If you want to analyze under equivalency, you can do that. If you want to analyze them under dependency, you can also do that. But in this instance, we do not have a coordinator or a subordinator linking them, connecting them. So a method of upgrading is used, a method of exemplifying is used, and a method of restating is used. So we shall discuss each one of them. We shall see how upgrading is done, how exemplifying is done, and how restating is done without actually using subordinators or coordinators. Now let's look at upgrading. What does it actually mean? A speaker or a writer connecting the message in the clauses without using a coordinator or a subordinator through a method known as upgrading is there. We study right up and we see this expressed in there. People speak and you listen to their speech And you can also realize that, yes, they are using a particular method to connect their message without relying on coordinators and subordinators. So what is upgrading? Yes, any idea? Good. I hope you are putting your mind on and you are trying out something. Let's see. Upgrading. Under this, the second clause presents a stronger clarification on the point made in the first clause. So upgrading, you see, it's like you are going up. Upgrade. You are of a lower grade, higher grade. Upgrading. A situation where your second clause presents a stronger clarification on the first clause. So a point has been made in your first clause. Then the next one presents a stronger point on the first one. The stronger argument in your second clause may run contrary to the point of the first clause. So it is not always the case that the stronger argument in your second clause should be in line with the first one. No. But the stronger argument, the upgraded information, could run contrary to the first one. We are saying it could run. We are not saying it always does. No, it could run contrary to the statement in your first clause. So we are saying an upgradement. So let's see. The defendant should present the argument. In fact, we wonder if they have any. Wow. So here, the second clause is presenting a further argument of knowledge that the first clause didn't present. So the defendant should present the argument. Yes, a situation where you have a plaintiff and a defendant. So the defendant is expected to present an argument. But in the second clause, we are realizing that the speaker has a stronger information that completely defeats what is expected in the first clause. We wonder if they have any. We realize that there's a connection. And if we want to analyze under equivalency or dependency, it is clear that we wonder if they have any. Certainly, it's a dependent situation. It depends on the defendant should present the argument before the full information is realized. We wonder if they have any. Cannot give us a complete message. So there is dependency there. But here we do not have a subordinator or a coordinator there. But there's linkage. The link has been established. The connection has been established under dependency. But we realize that the second clause, we wonder if they have any. It's presenting an upgraded information on the first clause. The defendant should present the argument. You should be done with the task very soon. Actually, everything has been completed. Yeah. So we have you should be done with the task very soon. A complete information. Everything has been completed. It also gives us a complete information. But here we have everything has been completed, presenting an upgraded information on the first clause. An information the writer has that in a way is an upgraded information on the first one. It's expected that you should be done with the task. But of course the writer looks around and realizes that there's even nothing to be done. Everything has been completed. So certainly the task should be over. And again here we do not have a subordinator or a coordinator linking them. And here we can see when we're analyzing under equivalency or dependency, we can clearly see that there's equivalency here. Everything has been completed. Makes sense. You should be done with a task very soon. Importance, equal importance placed on the two without a coordinator being used. But we realize that we have a punctuation mark dash in the first one. Then we have a semicolon in the second one. And we have some connectors, in fact, in the first one, actually in the second one. Then we have exemplifying. Another method of connecting our clauses without using coordinators or subordinators is exemplifying. And what does it mean? by the name, exemplifying, exemplification, example, giving an example. So the second clause in this instance clarifies the first clause by way of giving example. So the speaker makes a statement in the first clause, but the statement comes with another information, and that additional information is presenting an example, a clarification of an example, using an example to make the first clause more clear, to make the first clause clearer than it appears. So the common connectives include, for example, for instance. So here, the writer depends on exemplifying by using connectives like, for example, for instance, in our second clause. As we have in, he could help in so many activities. For instance, he could file a document for me. So, the second clause, he could file the documents for me, is giving us an example of what the person could do in helping me. He could help in so many activities. What are some of the activities? He could file the documents for me. So the second clause, he could file the documents for me, which makes a complete sense, clarifies what the person could do. He could help in so many activities. If you doubt what activity the person could do, he could file the document for me. So exemplifying is used in this instance. And we have the connective, for instance, connecting the two independent clauses. You are unreliable. For example, you gave false testimony in court today. So you see, it's giving the reason why you are unreliable. A main clause, you are unreliable, makes sense, complete sense. Independent clause, you gave false testimony in court today. Complete clause, makes sense, main clause. Then we have the connective, for example, connecting these two without a coordinator or a subordinator. So we use a method of exemplifying. If you doubt why I say you are unreliable, I'm giving you an instance, and that is that you gave false testimony in court today. Anyone who gives false testimony certainly cannot be relied upon. So here, we have our connectives there without subordinator or coordinator. Take note, our connectives with our second clause is always separated with punctuation marks. So just after the first clause, we have comma in the first sentence, and after our connective, we have comma before our second clause. In the same way, the second sentence, just after our first clause, the main clause, we have colon, and just after our connective, we have comma. Now, you use this punctuation on a level of formality, either it is formal or informal. But just as we are in discussing punctuation marks and formality of speech as to whether formal or informal, we are not going into that area for now. As our discussion builds on, as we keep discussing things, you'll come to realize that when you have a text you're analyzing, so many things come to the fore. Now let's look at restating. And what does it mean? The second clause here repeats the point in the first clause by making the point appear more specific. So this is another method of bringing connection between your clauses without using subordinator or a coordinator. Of course, you could have the clause being dependent on the other. You could have one clause and the other being equal, equivalency there. But here, no coordinator, no subordinator. So in restating, the speaker repeats the point made in the first clause in another way to bring out the specific message that is most important to the speaker. So it's a more of repetition. But you're not repeating exactly what is being said in the first clause. No. The idea, the point you want to make, you bring specifics in your second clause. Connective such as in other words, or rather, specifically, namely, that is, are usually used here. So you can rely on connectives like in other words, or rather, specifically, namely, that is, to restate your point. Come out with sentences in a situation where these connectives are used. That is an assignment for you that you try your hands on. And don't fail in doing that. By following the various examples we've given, you should be able to do that. Now, we've realized so far in our discussions that we have several ways of connecting our clauses in our sentence, in our discussions, in our write-ups. When you want to establish equivalency, when you are giving equal importance to the message in your clause, you have two clauses. You want to give equal importance to these clauses, you use coordination, coordinators. And we've also realized that when one clause depends on the other for a complete meaning, then we use subordination, subordinators. This led us to studying simple sentences. When we say a simple sentence is made of just one clause, one independent clause. Then we study compound sentences, where we said when you have two independent clauses, so you have equivalency here, two independent clauses connected together by a coordinator, then you have a compound sentence. Then it led us again into what we looked at as complex sentence. And we saw that in complex sentence, you have either one or more independent clauses linking to one or more independent clauses. Then you have a situation of complex sentence. So here in a complex sentence, you have both equivalency and dependency occurring at times. Then, in making us understand this further, we said that it is not only under compound sentence or complex sentence where you have to establish connection between your clauses by using subordinators and coordinators. That is not the only option available to us, but you can establish connection between your clauses by another method. And that we looked at restating, exemplifying, and upgrading as methods available to writers and speakers. And remember, under coordinators, we have classes of coordinators. We have coordinators under addition, coordinators under contrast, we have coordinators under choice. Then under our subordination, we have simple subordinators, we have complex subordinators, and we have correlative subordinators. Our next lesson, that will be the last lesson on the relationship between clauses, we'll try to put all these three together in analyzing a text. Until we meet you again, it's been grateful having you with us. And without you, certainly, the program wouldn't be what it is. We expect your comments and your suggestions. Do that by following the link displayed on your screen. Until we meet you again next week, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you.